All right, so we know that in this example, what is A? A is what? 1, good. What's B? B is 5. Hold on, let me start over. Okay. So A is 1, B is 5, C is negative 24. Got to make our X. We got to do our X box. On top of the X, you take A times C. So that would be a negative 24. B goes on the bottom. So feel free to use your charts. And don't say it out loud, but try to find your two numbers. That multiply to be negative 24. Hold on one second, Xavier. Find your two numbers that multiply to be negative 24 and add to 5. So I'll give you all a couple of minutes to find those numbers. So what would be your numbers? Raise your hand if you know. Give me a thumbs up if you know the numbers. All right, Steven, what's the numbers? Negative 3 and positive 8. Okay, so now we're going to break it down. Go ahead, take out your GCFs. And you should have, this is what you should have when you take out your GCFs. So raise your hand if you have my answer at the bottom. All right, any questions about that? Okay, so now you can take out your notes handout. It says 12A. So we took chapter A and we split it into 2 units, part 1 and part B. So on the front page of your notes, can you write your name? Your next test is actually next Friday, which I believe is February 2nd. Can somebody check? Mr. Suchi, do you know the date next Friday? Can you check? I think it's February 2nd, but I'm not sure. All right, so can you write at the bottom where it says, what does it say? It says test date. So write your name, and then the test date is Friday, February 2nd. So next Friday, you're going to have another quiz. So if yesterday didn't go so well, guess what? You get another chance to bring up your grade next Friday. So we're going to get started with some vocab. So let's go to page 1 in your notes. So a quadratic function has a general form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So that's that A, B, C. The graph of a quadratic is shaped like the letter U, and it's called a parabola. And there are 3 different forms to write a quadratic function. Okay, so the first one is general form, and that would be y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. In this form, you can easily find your y-intercept. So there's 3 different ways to write a quadratic. Each one has a different benefit. The benefit of this format is that you can find your y-intercept, and your y-intercept will always be C. Whatever this number here is at the end, that is your y-intercept. You can give it to Mr. Suchi. So it will be 0C. That is your y-intercept. And this here formula is very, very important because it tells us the axis of symmetry. So what is the axis of symmetry? Let's go ahead and quickly draw a parabola. So if you draw a parabola, I'm going to draw my parabola right here. The axis of symmetry is the line that would divide the graph in half. So if you were to imagine that you are taking the graph and folding it in half, that line that goes down the middle is called your axis of symmetry. So that's the first format for a quadratic. The second form is factored form. And that's why we spent so much time in the last unit reviewing how to factor. Factored form is y equals, and then you have an a, and that's where you break it down into your 2 parentheses. So if you have a GCF, that would go here. And then inside of your parentheses, you have x minus r, x minus r. Now this format is important because it will help you find your x-intercepts. So what is your x-intercept? First of all, there's a lot of different vocab words for x-intercept. We can call it roots, solution zeros. And that's all the same thing for your x-intercept. And it's where it crosses the x-axis. So I'll give you a minute to fill those in. So altogether, there's 3 different ways to write a quadratic. The first one is general form, which is your y. It tells you your y-intercept easily. The second is factor form, which is your x-intercepts. And then the third method is vertex form. So vertex form is y equals a, parentheses, x minus h squared plus k. We're going to talk about that form a lot. And in this format, you can easily find what we call the vertex. Now the vertex is either your highest point or it could be your lowest point. If it's your highest point, so I'm going to draw a U. So if I were to draw a U, that's a frown essentially. So your parabola could be a frown or it could be a smile. All right, if it's a frown, the highest point, the vertex is your maximum. But if it's a smile, the vertex is the minimum. Okay, any questions so far? So let's go ahead and graph a parabola. So if you need to, calculators are probably under your desk because pre-calc had a quiz last period and I had them put all the calculators under the desk. So if you don't see a calculator, it could be under your desk, so feel free to grab one out. So we're going to figure out the y values for these x values. And to do that, we're going to square it. So in your calculator, if you're using your calculator to square a negative, you have to put parentheses. So type that in your calculator. Type in -2 squared if you need to. -2 squared means 2 times 2. And what do we know about a negative? A negative times a negative will be what? Positive. So what do you think -2 times -2 will be? 4. What about -1 times -1? What's 1 times 1? 1. What about 0 times 0? 0. And then notice what happens with our y values. They repeat themselves because +1 times +1 is 1 and +2 times +2 is 4. So let's go ahead and graph these points. So this is my x-axis. This is y. So let's go ahead and plot these points. So let's put a point at -2. So if I start from here and I go to -2, I want you to count up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put your point right there. Go ahead and plot a point at -2, 4. And then do the same thing for -1, 1. So this is 0, 0. So -1 and then up 1. So you will put a point right here. Right where you see that red dot, put a point. And then we have a point at 0, 0. So that's my origin. Put your point there. And then we do a point at 1, 1. So that would be here. And then 2, 4, that goes here. So do you see how those points, if you were to connect these points, how it looks like the letter U? Go ahead and make your curve. Yeah, good. So does this graph look like a smile or a frown? It's a smile. So this has a vertex. Your vertex is a minimum point. And what is the lowest point on this parabola? 0, 0. So we always write that as an ordered pair. Now the x value of the axis of symmetry of your vertex, is your axis of symmetry. So you're going to write x equals, and this so happens to have an axis of symmetry right on top of the y-axis. So this little blue dashed line, that is the line that would divide this parabola in half. So that would be at x equals 0. All right, any questions? Okay, so let's go to page 2 and let's identify some of these characteristics for this graph. Okay, so first of all, is this parabola a smile or a frown? It's a frown. So do you think we have a maximum or a minimum? Whenever it's a frown, it has a maximum. So we're going to circle the word maximum. And where is the highest point? So does everyone put a point? Does everyone see that red dot that I put on the graph? Do we agree that that's the highest point? That is called the vertex. It's my highest point. So let's go ahead and write that as an ordered pair. All right, so this is -2. So right here, x is -2. And then what is the y value? 8. So we're going to write that as -2, 8. That's my vertex. All right, where does it cross the y-axis? I'm going to put a dot where it crosses the y. I'm going to put a green dot right there. And that looks like that's halfway between 4 and 6. So what are we going to call that number? 5, yeah. So we're going to write that as 0, 5. And the axis of symmetry is x equals, and whatever this number is in the vertex, that first number, that's your axis of symmetry. So x equals -2 is my axis of symmetry. If I were to draw a line at -2, that would divide my frown in half. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit first semester, but what are my arrows doing on both sides? Are they going up or down? Down. So whenever they go down, we're going to put a negative infinity. For a parabola, your end behavior should match. So if both arrows are going down, so if you have a down parabola, then we would say it's negative infinity. But if we have a smile where they both go up, then we would say the end behavior is positive infinity. All right, any questions about that first example? Thumbs up, sideways, or down. I'm not asking if you could do it on the quiz yet, but do you understand how I got my answers? All right, let's look at the second one here. I want you to try to identify the axis of symmetry and vertex. So do we have a maximum or a minimum for this one? Raise your hand. Put a thumbs up if you say it's maximum, thumbs down if you say minimum. Where we at? Okay. Yep. So I agree. We have a maximum. I'm going to write that down because that is a quiz question. You have to tell me if it's a max or a min. And I'm going to put a red dot at the highest point. And this looks like the highest. Oh, I meant to say red. Okay. This is the highest point. So x is 2, and what is y? 216. Good. So that's what you're going to write where it has the question marks. We're going to put a 2 and a 16. And which one of these numbers am I using for my axis of symmetry? Is it the 2 or the 16? It's the 2. Good. X equals 2. Okay, my y-intercept, that's about here. And where does that number look like where I put that green dot? Well, it is y right there. It looks like to me it's about 12. So we're going to write that y-intercept is 0, 12. And for our end behavior, the left side and the right side, the left side is going down, so that would be negative infinity, and then the right side is also going down. And that's negative infinity. Okay, we're almost finished for today. Any questions so far? All right. Let's look at example 2. I want you to take a minute and try to answer these questions on your own. And that's our last example for today. So looking at this parabola, tell me where your axis of symmetry is, where the vertex is. Is it a maximum or a minimum? Where's your y-intercept and your end behavior? So just take a guess on what you would write. Leslie and Jasmine, y'all struggling today. Y'all real tired. Oof. You might need to get you a coffee down the hallway. See if they in there. In this example, it looks like your y-intercept and your vertex are the same place. So you should have the same answer for your vertex and y-intercept. Check your answers against mine and see if you have the same thing. So your vertex and your y-intercept are both at 0, 3. It's a minimum because it's a smile. Your axis of symmetry is at x equals 0. And both arrows are going up. So whenever your arrows are going up, we say that it is a positive infinity for your end behaviors. If the arrows go down, then that's a negative infinity. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. So I want to be clear on your directions right now. You can listen to music while you're working on your homework, but if I notice that you're not working, then you will not be allowed to use your phone during homework time. Okay, so everyone, for right now, you should be working on questions 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's all you're working on right now on homework 1 is questions 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can listen to music, but you need to get your homework done. Homework 1, I'm going to stamp on Friday, and I'll explain how we're going to do homework moving forward for the students that are new to me. Any questions?